Hi guys, welcome to my show. We're here right in the south of Guelph with my very good friend, Councillor Dominique. How are you doing today, Dominique?
I'm doing wonderful. It's so nice to see you.
Yeah, so yeah, actually, we just choose this park because it's kind of a very beautiful park to come to discuss about some of the issues that is concerning, especially Ward 6 and the kind of things going on in our city. So, talk to us. How have you been?
I am having a wonderful summer. The weather's been great. Council just cleared a number of huge historic files, and so those are big hurdles like Doe Line, the Trails Master Plan. So it feels like we've really accomplished a lot in this term of council. So we have a little break from meetings, just to enjoy all the city's great parks and trails and amenities, and hopefully some festivals coming back. So we gotta enjoy it.
Yeah, that's really nice. Okay, let's start with this. Who is Dominique?
Well, that's a great question. Still discovering. I'm originally from Ottawa.
Okay.
And I'm a French Canadian, so I did all my education in French. We lived in Nova Scotia for a brief time, and I currently moved to Guelph in 1997. I've done all kinds of work here in Guelph, so moved to Guelph in 97 to work for the cooperators, and I'd also worked for Agricor. I did my master's degree at U of G.
Okay.
And then I was also a communication consultant, so I've written some national reports.
Oh, really?
And I've done some work in the community here, so you could say that in Guelph I've worked for the private, public, not-for-profit sectors.
Okay.
I'm a mom and a wife.
That's good to know. Already. So the second question is, how did your young adult years influence your public life? Because people don't really realize we all have something that triggers us to get into public life. Mm-hmm. So what's the story about you getting where you are today?
So I have, since junior high, always been involved in some kind of student council. So junior high student council president, high school student council president. And then in my university years, I studied economics and political science. I was also a page in the House of Commons. I was a tour guide in Parliament. I was a parliamentary intern after that. And one summer in university, I went to Washington, D.C. for an internship there. Huh. So I've always been around politics, but not partisan.
Okay.
So, after I finished the internship program, I was a lobbyist. So, really, I've always been a boundary spanner, translating for someone about some aspect of public life.
Okay.
So I love it. I find it endlessly fascinating.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, the next one is before City Council, you are a notable community leader, entrepreneur, member of numerous boards and committees. Tell us about some of the things you've done in the past.
Sure. So, like many people, I was really active in my children's school for a number of years. Also, from a professional point of view, so I mentioned I worked at the Cooperators as their Director of Public Affairs. I worked at Agricor. As a freelance consultant, one of the best things I ever did in Guelph is I worked with Guelph Police Services for the 2016 Special Olympics Spring Games that were here. And that brought together 800 volunteers for just an amazing week with Special Olympics. So that was really memorable. And then in a volunteer capacity, I was chair and also a member for the Guelph Community Foundation. I was in some capacity with the Community Foundation for about 10 years. There's some other stuff I'm sure I've forgotten, but usually if somebody needs a hand, then I like to help them out.
Oh, that's really good. Okay, the next question is, the last 2 years have been a big turning point for our community due to the pandemic. How has this changed your function in the City Council and all the projects that have been going on, especially this Ward 6?
So I'd say for COVID, really all the heavy lifting has been done by public health, by frontline workers, by first responders, by teachers in schools. And so the municipality has had a support role, but we, by and large, have followed the directives of public health, which is appropriate. And we are a child of the province. And so if the province declares something, then the city has no opportunity to modify that. So, all the credit, but I'm happy to talk to you about how we did remote meetings and those things, but all the credit, all that hard work was staff everywhere in HR departments, in IT, who managed to let people work remotely. And so I want the recognition to be squarely with those folks. So as a counselor, obviously we went remote.
Okay.
But you can adapt to that. I wouldn't consider that a hardship at all. I was really privileged. I had a front row seat for, I sit on the board of the Elliott, which is the city's designated long-term care home.
Okay.
I saw how hard they worked and the lengths they went to make sure that their residents and staff were safe. And that was really a place of privilege to see that. I sat on the Mayor's Economic Recovery Task Force and had the honor of talking with a number of business leaders to understand how difficult it has been to open and shut down and open and shut down, and a number of challenges for them. So I think that by and large, councillors, the mayor did a lot of advocacy with the large urban mayors caucus, but councillors still just received the staff reports where we could, supported these good staff recommendations to help small business or charities. We're looking at things that have maybe been postponed a little bit or need to be modified somewhat. But I don't see big shifts due to COVID.
Oh.
All the master planning, all the growth projections, those will all still happen.
Oh, that's good.
The big projects like the South End Rec Center, Baker Street, those are still progressing. And so, we'll talk in a couple minutes about all those cool things. But I think council's job was to reach out to our networks, encourage people to be vaccinated, tell people, where they could find information on what services are open or closed, and to offer the support we can. Because all those big support projects, right? All the income subsidies, they come from other levels of government. Because we have no other source of revenue than property taxation and user fees. And we know the user fees for transit or rec centers, they vanished overnight.
Oh, yeah.
So understanding the fiscal reality has been important. So that would be a big change, I think. But other than that, we have to give credit where credit is due, and that was really in the healthcare system, in long-term care, in education, and then all those businesses that had to adapt.
So, in terms of a project, don't you think? So there were no pushbacks on projects, kind of extending them because of because most of the time everything was shut down. So did it not affect some of the project due date of services or revenue?
Yeah, so some projects might have been moved back by a year and a half, but we also don't want higher construction costs because of that delay, right?
Yeah.
And so by and large, some projects had compressed timelines or have been pushed back a little bit, but really those big blocks, those won't change.
Oh, that's good. It's a good thing to know.
Yeah.
Okay, the next question is as a community leader and government functionary, what is your stand on some systemic barriers that affect marginalized groups in the community?
Right. I am clearly the wrong person to be the one saying what needs to change. So I think my role is to listen, to amplify, to help where I can, and I try to do that. So, right from the first couple of months in council, I was advocating for our advisory committees and boards to track their diversity, because if you're not measuring it, you have no idea, right? Improve our outreach. I'm often a champion for seniors. Just last week, you heard me talk about accessibility for large accessibility vans and their ability to park underground at Baker Street. So I advocate a lot in terms of accessibility. And then, I'm happy to talk to anybody who's interested in running for council, or who wants help navigating that, or who wants help understanding what programs are available. So I'm happy to be an ally in that. So happy to push where I can and advocate where I can and as is appropriate. The city is doing a lot of work on anti-racism, and I think we will see some real progress in that. We've seen a lot of announcements. The other thing is, so there's the corporate stuff in the city, but then there's the stuff that I can do myself. So lots of listening and reading, and I've taken anti-bias training and all those good things, and just respecting every citizen as a citizen of Guelph.
Right, that's a very good point for people to realize. Sometimes people are in denial what is going on. That there are a lot of groups, they have all these barriers that kind of prohibit them from getting some essential things that every other citizen gets. So for us to know that the city and the authorities are doing something to accommodate all these groups is a very good thing to know, especially here in our city of Guelph. Okay, the next probably the last one is
You have to ask me all the big projects in Ward 6.
Exactly. Thanks for reminding me about that. I kind of jumped it. Now, what are the big things happening? Ward 6 is sort of like the heart of Guelph. That's where you have a lot of the big things happening. So can you tell us about the things happening in your ward?
Yeah, so what is very interesting in this term of council is that we're seeing big things happening all over the city. We're a city that is 15 kilometers across at its widest point, right? So we shouldn't really be thinking in terms of South End, East End. We should just be thinking of Guelph as the city, right? What are the great things the South End has to offer the community? Just like I go to the university, or I'll go to Riverside Park, or we'll go to the West End.
I thought it was in his neighborhood. Bro.
So big things happening in South End, and this is why I wanted to meet you here, because we're just at the crux, right? So behind us will be the Clare Maltby secondary plan. So from Clare Road down to Maltby, that is the city's last unplanned greenfield, and so we're in year 6 now of the planning for that, all the hydrogeological work. What is really impressive with that greenfield that's different is 45% of the land can't be touched because it's part of the natural heritage system. So you'll see a development that's very, very green. So that Clare Maltby secondary plan, you've probably been following council. We talked about where the intensification goes, where the parkland goes, all of those things. And so I think that will come back to council in the fall. And just over here will be the new South End Rec Centre.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Right there.
Just over here, just behind, so to the south of Bishop Mac on Pompey Drive.
Oh, nice.
So when I moved to Guelph and we bought our house, the realtor said a rec center is coming soon. And my children are now 17 and 14. We have not broken ground yet, but it is one of the reasons that I wanted to run for council. I really wanted to make sure that we proceed with the South End Rec Centre. We're a growing city.
Yeah, you're right.
The population south of Stone has just exploded. So should be shovels in the ground. End of 2022, early 2023. It's an $80 million facility with all the green amenities that are possible. 2 ice rinks, 2 gyms, walking trail.
Wow.
So I expect to see lots of people there when it opens.
That's good.
That's a big thing in this ward. The ward boundary review. So I'm going to lose some of my cherished Ward 6ers in the next election. Yeah. So council composition and ward boundary review has now been completed. But we hadn't really changed the boundaries within the city for 30 years.
Yeah, it's about time.
It's about time.
Yeah.
So some of those ward boundaries will change so that we have a little bit more balance in what the consultants called glaring. So sorry, folks in Ward 6, you've been underrepresented for a number of years, and that's going to be adjusted in the next election.
Yeah, that's good.
So take a look at those maps. And the other thing, obviously, is intensification, right? Intensification right now
Where's it happening?
Gordon, a lot of intensification along Gordon, but I'm happy to see that there's also intensification happening in other parts of the city, which I think provides a really needed balance. So when we're in council planning sessions, there's the planning by property, and so there we're looking at, is there ample parking, is there ample amenities? And I believe people in the highest density, they need the best backyards. So, what are we doing for park space, all those things. So that's the micro. And then the macro is looking at all those, big plans for the future. And how are we setting up the folks for Clare Maltby? How are we setting people up in the comprehensive zoning bylaw review? And so sometimes we're very granular, right? Looking at, can somebody have a modification to a sign? And then sometimes we're talking about things that are 30, 50 years in the future. So that is significant for Ward 6. And we're keeping an eye on the school board's plans for a new high school at Victoria and Arco. And then, we look at all these things like transportation master plan, trails master plan, transit. Will we have enough transit in the South End to help people easily get to where they want to go? Especially, really great development is that there's on-demand transit now for the Hamlin Business Park, which we didn't have before.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. So now, when do we expect all these projects to, run to completion?
Right.
Is there any timeline based on what is going on right now? Because people are kind of getting wind up and excited about all these things happening.
I think for the rec center, the timeline's about a 3-year time horizon. Right? So, we get impatient at the end of a project and we think, that building is not going fast enough, but we've been waiting 20 years. 20 years of collecting development charges, 20 years of land surveying, 20 years of, and budgets and things. So that's the tip of the iceberg when we open the doors. Similarly, with the Baker Street development that was just approved last week, that's a project that's been debated for 30 years in the city.
Really?
Right? So it's a bit too bad that both of these huge projects come at the same time. But the option of delaying either one just makes them more expensive down the road.
You're right. Oh, that's really good. Okay, now the last question, if I'm not mistaken here, is what is Dominique's future plan? Because sometimes people see you as a leader or entrepreneur, like community leader, but we really want to know if you're going to stick around for us for a long time and get into bigger things. So I don't know. Talk to us. We need to know your secret. How we can.
So in the immediate, right, we're going to have a wonderful summer. We're going to encourage people to get vaccinated. I'm going to do some training for the federal election in the fall.
Okay.
And I'm going to continue to serve the people in Ward 6, and then we'll see whether they want to give me another mandate or not. That will be, my future, or maybe entirely up to the voters in Ward 6.
Yeah, you're right. So that's giving us right answer.
Well, you know what? So
Us.
tomorrow is promised to no one.
Okay, right, makes sense.
So, and people do not like politicians
Yeah.
who make promises
You're
or
right.
forecasts that are wrong.
Fair enough.
I think there's a lot of options
Yeah.
for me, and a lot of things that interest me, and so really, one step at a time. I am committed to City Council till October 2022, right? And people are welcome to reach me anytime if they have questions about policy or anything like that.
Yeah, thanks a lot very much. As you guys know, she's just like an open book trying to serve her ward here in Ward 6, and I've known her for a long time. She's been a very good friend of mine and serving our city with all her heart and trying to see how she can help to send goodwill message to our citizens. Thank you very much for having this time to discuss all these very important issues with me today at this beautiful Dragonfly Park.
We should run through the splash pad.
We're gonna do it right now. Thank you guys.
Thanks.
Bye.